So, welcome back to the Talent Whisperer. It's your host, Chipochedu, and today's episode is with someone super cool. I am both a fan and a friend of Sam Sakala, also known as Dope G. Sam is a renowned Zambian entertainer. He's a rapper, he's an actor, and an all-round entertainer. Sam has had success as a solo artist, as a member of the award-winning group Zone Fam, and also as an actor, appearing in amazingly popular shows like Love Games, Love Games, Fever, and most recently Zuba. I'm so inspired by your ability to stay to reinvent and yet stay consistently hardworking, and even after fame and popularity, you still remain a really nice guy, which is why I think we're friends. So welcome to the Talent Whisperer podcast, Sam.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man.
I was enjoying that.
There's the money, there's that voice. Love it. You're enjoying me praising.
Yeah, I was just like, please don't stop.
Don't stop. Oh, man. So, I think we always start from the same place here. We like to connect the dots. So we start with trying to get to know you as a kid. So what were you like as a kid? What did you get, consistently praised for? And then what did you get in trouble for?
I haven't really taken a trip down there in a while.
Let's go.
But as a kid, I was really quiet. I think this is what shaped me to be the introvert that I am now.
Are you introverted?
I am badly introverted. I can stay indoors for 4 straight days and not even feel like I'm missing out on anything. So,
that's interesting.
and the backstory with that was my mother actually fired the person who was working to help out at home.
Yeah.
She fired her when I was just about maybe 3 years of age. So as a result, she would just leave me when she's working long hours and stuff. And I'd only maybe go to a sibling of hers house maybe weekends and school holidays and stuff. So I had to learn how to stay on my own for really long hours. So that's pretty much what it was like being a kid. And I think with that you have a lot of time to think. You have a lot of time to take in stuff as opposed to just as being the person who's giving out things. So but of course I was still one of those kids who would just say the darndest things when I'm around people. And the things that I would get praised for a lot, I'd say I picked up on my academics pretty early.
Okay.
So I was always labeled the intelligent kid, and it's nice when you're younger.
Yeah.
But then as you grow older, it now starts to be oh wait,
pressure.
Exactly. It's I have to impress all the time. So that's pretty much it.
That's interesting. So do you think I'm trying to connect you being super introverted, you being by yourself all the time, and yet having a career that's so out there, what do you think did you perform when you were a kid? Were you as much as you were by yourself, when the adults and the people came over, or did you feel comfortable then performing and then going back into yourself and regenerating? What was that like? Because I'm just trying to understand being a kid, the loner, alone, but then having a life that is lived outside,
I think this is where God's sense of humor just comes into play, man, because in all those times when I'd spend so much time alone, I don't know if you've ever seen those memes which say introverts when they're alone, what people think they're doing. It's not you just sit still and you're not doing anything. So in that time, you don't have these eyeballs on you, okay? So you are your freest. So I remember before we even had our first TV, we had a little radio, a cassette player, and it was just there. And it had an option of recording over some tapes. So I think that is what ended up starting to shape my artist journey. And as young as I was, I used to experiment a lot with the same cassette player that we had.
Yeah. I
So,
remember that.
exactly.
I remember the cassettes.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what shaped me. And the thing is, the media, it raised me, you feel now it's I listen to a lot of podcasts, and the podcast people end up feeling they're your friends. Back then it was the radio presenter. The radio presenter would actually feel this is an actual friend, So most of the ideas that I had as a kid were pretty much shaped by the media. And of course, with television eventually also started having quite an impact on shaping my character,
And what do you remember, like, as your first step down artistry lane? Like, what do you remember listening to? Like, what was the first album you were like obsessed with? And same with like TV show. What was the first like TV
Yeah.
show you were obsessed with? Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to the artist journey, that took quite a while to actually kick in. But then I feel like the turning point for me, I used to listen to a lot of R&B, right? Because I was
Okay.
raised around a lot of women, and it's
Yeah.
sentimental. But then when I visit my cousins, like my one of my cousins was they teach you masculinity, guys. Like that very toxic one, I'll tell you, no, boys don't do that and whatever. You know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I remember him
You know,
like
Thug
actually,
Life.
fam.
Yeah.
So I was being chastised about liking Casey and JoJo and
Oh
all of
man,
that
love
stuff. And
Casey and JoJo.
it's
Oh
beautiful,
man,
guys.
so good.
Yeah, I never got to listen to Jodeci, but at least like I picked it up
Yeah.
from Casey and
Me
JoJo
too.
going forward. Yeah, so I used to love R&B quite a lot. So this one holiday, I went to go visit my cousins, and of course they'd always have like Park playing in the house, Snoop playing in the house, but that was like top secret. The parents shouldn't hear you listening to hip hop because of the cuss words and all of that. Yeah, so there used to be a show called Rock Down Africa.
RDA.
Rock Down
Yeah,
Africa.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
so
gosh. I saw a meme about the Ajip yesterday. Like, if you know
yeah,
Ajip,
yeah,
you should be chairing family meetings. I feel like if you know RDA, you should
yeah.
be
They're not
an
getting
uncle
that
in the
anytime.
family.
The uncle,
Anyway.
yeah.
Okay, let's go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so but then the album which really spoke to me was Ludacris Word of Mouth. Like that I felt like it spoke to me directly. At the time, I think Jay-Z was popping with his, I think, Blueprint, and my cousins were more into that.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to Luda's Word of Mouth, I felt like it spoke to me because it was quite comedic.
Yeah. He
So
was funny. He's funny.
exactly.
I loved that album as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I really loved that, and I think that the fun in it actually made me it made me actually think. I'm like, wait, I could do this. I can, because I used to rap along to it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, maybe I
Did
can
something
do this.
do you feel like when you look back, was it like a gradual, I can do this, or did you like hear that album and then something just clicked inside of you, like
I
you
think
felt something?
um I think in my life, mostly it was you can do this. And then like the I can do this only came later.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember having like certain teachers, and I feel like when I look back at my journey now, it feels
Yeah.
like, okay, these were like destiny helpers or whatever you can call them. Yeah. So this one teacher who would like make me go and act in front of the whole class, and I hated that because like I'm really shy.
Yeah.
I'd rather be like drawn back. If I'm performing for a mirror and it ends there, so yeah. But with the I can do this, I mean, the Luda did have me thinking, but I had learned how to rhyme way earlier from, ironically, was Daddy Zimas, so I had
That's
heard,
cool.
yeah, I heard like that Chihuahua era,
Yes,
and
of course.
I understood just like how to arrange rhymes and things, so I'd experiment with a few words here and there, but it was just for fun. But then later on, by the time I was in junior high, when all the Ludacris's were coming out, then I started thinking, okay, now,
Yeah.
what? Maybe, just maybe.
It's funny you say you were learning how to arrange rhymes, and when listening to Daddy Zima, so like the rhythms were clicking in you.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where this is my opinion, like I think that's where your artistry started without you knowing it, because I listened to the Daddy Zimas, I listened to a lot of hip hop, but I wasn't arranging anything in my head or learning how to like start writing rhymes or be interested in that. Like I was just listening because I like that music.
Yeah, no, I
So
hear you.
I think you probably started then without knowing that you started.
Yeah.
Because like nobody listens to, okay, I think only artists sometimes listen to music, or people that have that kind of like brain
Yeah.
will see something and then they rearrange it, they hear it differently. The rest of us are like, nice beat, nice lyrics, I'll
On
play
that, I
that
have
again.
to ask.
Yeah.
There's that thing, like there was a study which came out which said only about 30% of people hear a voice in their heads. Do you hear a voice in your head? Or is that something you're not comfortable talking about?
What
in
does
such a
your
public
voice sound
forum?
like? If we talk about your voice first, do I hear a voice?
Or like, do you hear your thoughts, like
Yes.
actual words?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't hear my thoughts. I play. I play movies in my head. So I don't think I hear thoughts per se,
Yeah.
but I
Visual.
visualize. Yeah. So I'm constantly like playing out scenarios and visualizing and like, but not a voice. No.
I
Yeah.
see.
So it's a voice for you.
Yeah, for me it's a voice.
Yeah.
Definitely
I
a
hope
voice.
they don't take us to exorcisms after this episode. But like, but yeah, no one's ever asked me that, and I've never really thought about like what goes on in my head. But I think I visualize and conceptualize a lot. Like I'll start because I'm a big problem solver, so I'll start from the problem, then I'll start thinking of scenarios. Like it's a PowerPoint in my head, and then recommendations and solutions and action points.
That is so cool.
I think so too. Okay, so like I read, I was doing some research because I research.
Yeah.
And I read in one of your interviews that you like to stress that you went to government schools.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's something, and I want to know why. Why do you like to stress that you went to government schools?
Government schools were rough, guys. Like, I wasn't ready. So I went to government schools from the very first grade all the way until, no, actually even before that. There was like they used to call it Olofea, but it was welfare, which was yeah.
So discovering Olofea is welfare.
Yeah. I think that's what
I had to. It is. I had to question like the previous generation to say, okay, but yeah. Yeah.
No, the language is dynamic, I guess. So things just go.
So you went to
anywhere.
Olofea?
Yes. So I mean, with that, it was light. You know, we're a bunch of kids just enjoying ourselves. It was all about what was in your lunch box and it was a literal box at the time. Yeah. So
Such good times.
I swear.
Before bills.
Fam. So we went on, and first grade, I remember the very first day, like there's a teacher who actually whipped me. I even remember his name, like. So I was just like, what is this? I went to go complain to mom. It's like, no, it's like corporal punishment was okay. So because they went through it, they were just like, okay, you know what? It should be okay, and just government schools in themselves, there's something that, and I struggled when I got to college because I noticed that my other friends, they had a different work ethic as compared to me. I felt like there were more critical thinkers. It's like they were training them, and depending on what school you went to, it's like they were being trained to be like managers and all of that stuff. And I felt like my education system, it really felt like I was just being trained to be a laborer, So I love to talk about it because I understand that there is something that is wrong with our curriculum.
Yep.
It almost feels like it's just training laborers. And I also feel like we're not being trained to be problem solvers. There's so many problems when you go into these communities that could be solved by the people who actually live there.
If they could think critically.
Exactly. And I think that, with brains, you have to shape the way somebody thinks, The environment does help with that, and school has such a big role to play because these kids will interact more with their teachers than they will with their parents sometimes, So I feel like I love to talk about it because I feel like I broke out of that mindset, and it wasn't just me alone. I was lucky enough to have like cousins and stuff who went to more private schools, and they would share some of the materials that they had. They had more reading materials.
So you could see the difference.
Yeah, no, I could see the difference by far, and there's reading materials that I could access from them, which our schools never got to see. At the beginning, at least, like I went to primary school in the mid-90s, and at least we still had like Jelita and Mulenga and all of that.
Yeah.
But then at some point, like even that faded. Like I don't know any like common stories that kids are reading right now. So I love to stress it, and it's something that I see as a problem, and I think that as I grow older and I'm getting into positions where I can actually speak to the people who are in positions of power, I think that we do need to revise our curriculum to just like fit our society and where it is right now.
I agree with you. I think I went to good schools, so I was probably like when I went to university, I was probably like already in that space where I could problem solve and stuff. But I do remember still struggling when I went to UNZA, and I struggled because I thought I could read widely and then come back and apply all those things I read widely and answer questions how I wanted to answer questions and like use my critical thinking skills, which is what I love to do, like take big problems and then, But I struggled with the culture of swattering.
There you go.
And I found that the people that went to government schools, your technical schools were very good at that. And for me, who was more, and I mean, I went to a Catholic girls' boarding school. I went to Kasisi, so it wasn't like, I think they trained us with both, but like as just like my personality struggled a bit to swata, to get into that point where like you don't ask questions. Because for me to be like, why? Why? If I see, I'm looking through a microscope and it's a bit dirty and the sample looks weird, I'll draw what I saw. And I'll be told, no, you don't draw what you see. You draw what it is, girl.
Y'all had microscopes?
At Unza.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we did. So, but like, it was a bit of a struggle. But I see what you mean. And I think even now in my career, being in HR, I see that a lot, that when they rank those top 20 MBAs, when they rank those, they do that for a reason. And there are schools where people just come out of it thinking different.
Yeah, no.
And then they are 10 steps ahead of you. Then now you have to start catching up.
Legit.
Somehow always catching up. Gosh. So, speaking of school, did you, you said you mentioned you went to college. So did you, go the whole way, get a tertiary education? And what did you study, and how do you find that useful today?
I dropped out, and it was quite a flex because there was a whole Kanye West.
Listen, I was about to say. So even when I wrote this question, I was like, low-key hoping there's a story. Yeah.
So with my tertiary education, so I completed my school, and then my hopes were to go to Unza. Here's another thing, like, the idea of picking something to do out of passion or like actually wanting to make a difference, it's kind of alien, like, especially like from where I come from, it's really alien. Like, they will push you towards whatever seems to make a lot of money.
Of course.
And I
think it's a lot of homes.
It's
a lot of homes.
And I think it's also just a societal thing, so I finish and I'm looking at like the people in the family who seemed to have been doing pretty well. I'm like, okay, you know what? I've seen The Economist has got racks. And then I also look at
it also sounds great. Economist.
I promise.
Like you're just doing smart shit all day.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I'd love to go into like the School of Humanities, like where they do that at Unza, because I had seen someone actually do it, and then my other cousins were doing accounting at Zika's. Okay, so
that was the ACCA craze when CAT and then SCCA. Oh yeah. I was there. I was not at Zika's, but I was there for all of it.
And I was like
culturally.
Of course. So I leave school. I leave high school, and then I applied at Unza. Unfortunately, like, I couldn't get a bursary with the marks that I got. I missed it by 1 point.
Half a point could mess you up in those days.
So I mean, the option was there to like pay for it, but then I'm here with a single mother who couldn't afford that. And then I applied at CBU, and then they said, no, you see, what we're going to do is it's like we can put you in whatever school we choose. And then they went and put me in the School of Natural Sciences, or Natural Resources actually, and I was supposed to graduate with a degree in forestry. So I went there. I stayed 24 hours and I called my mom. And that's the beauty. Like, my mom's always given me a lot of freedom, Like, she's my friend. Like, she's buddy. And I'm just like, fam, what is this? And some of the subjects which were there listed are subjects that
you and I have such a similar story. Did you know I did natural sciences?
Are you serious?
Except I stuck it out for more than 24 hours. I was there for a year.
I was thinking when you were talking about a microscope, I'm like, wait, you're in HR. Why?
Listen, that's a story. You're the interviewee here, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, I also went to the School of Natural Sciences and that didn't work out. I talked about it in the last episode, so I'm not going to repeat it. But I went there and I was like, what is happening?
That's like...
And kudos to understanding moms. Because same thing, my mom was really open to me shifting careers, and this is why I'm where I am today. But like at that moment, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. Probably studying insects.
Fam.
Yeah.
Ish.
and you studying trees.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
different lives.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
but
We wouldn't
no.
have met. Or
Yeah,
we would have met in
we would
that
have probably
field.
met in
So
that
like,
field
yeah,
in lab
yeah.
coats.
I know. So what do you think about the thorax? You know?
What you see? What insect is in this tree? Or
Exactly.
something
Yes.
smart.
Yeah. So when I called mom, she was just like, okay, now you know what? Come back. It's cool. And I was so happy because at the time I had just like we had just grouped up with the boys, like with the Zone Fam crew. So I was like, when I came
Oh,
back, I was like, at least I will
the
have an
boys.
opportunity to continue
Yeah.
with making music. Yeah. So I came back here. At least like the Zika's payment plan was a bit better. You know, like I could just pick the subjects that I was doing, pay for those. Yeah. So I started, and I
What did
had
you
so
start?
much hope. Want to guess cat?
Cat.
Yes. Yeah. So.
I feel like you guys need to form a support group.
No,
You
I'm not
guys who
even trying to
started
see
cat and
those
didn't.
people.
I
It's
know
just
five
like,
people
ugh.
just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah,
continue.
and the thing is, like, even with that, like, people were doing it for different reasons, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm here and I'm like, you know, I'll go into it. And then you had, like, these different race kids who were doing it to go and run their businesses. And then there were also some kids who were just, like, you know, these private school kids who are waiting to fly overseas. And then they get there and they're like,
Just chilling, because
yeah.
you could enter cat immediately after like uni.
Yeah, you
so there
could.
was no sorry, after high school, so there wasn't like
Exactly.
too stringent the
Yep.
process.
Yeah. So I was just like, nah, you know what? Like, let me just, you know, try my hand at this. And I didn't like go at it because of like, you know, the payment situation and this and that. So I ended up it was only supposed to be a year. I think I ended up doing it for 2 years instead. And in those 2 years, I even started like working at a family business and all of that stuff. And I hated the job. I absolutely hated the job. I was just
Yeah.
like, what is
But were you
this?
enjoying the accounting? Were you enjoying the course?
Not the whole of it.
Yeah.
No, not the whole of it.
So
I mean,
you hated the job and you hated school.
I didn't hate school. Zikas was lit, but I
Yeah.
hated the,
Yeah.
that.
There was
But
there was parts of it. You liked
yeah.
outside.
Yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
So, and I always felt like even when I started working the job, I was working for an advertising firm, and I was like, you know what? I'd rather be in the room where they're pitching ideas, because if there's one thing that I really understood or I knew that I had was creativity. So yeah, and it was just so mundane. It was so routine. I was like, bruh, you know, like, what's today? The 15th. Okay, so we're calling such and such a company, and we're going to yeah. So I really didn't like that, but at the same time, I had to go back to school. So I started doing school and work, if I'm not mistaken. And then studio also started picking up, you know. So in the morning, we all leave because I wasn't staying on campus. We all leave, you know, like we're going to school. Fam, soon as I just, like, my lecture is
Looking.
done, yeah,
Yeah.
off to studio.
Yeah.
You know, and then eventually I even stopped going to school together.
Completely.
They thought I was going to school. I was just
that
like,
classic
you know,
story.
yeah. So
Yeah.
ended up dropping out, and I was like, I'm just going to give this music thing a try.
Yeah.
And at the time, like, nobody else had done what we were doing at the time, so it was literally just shooting a shot in the dark. But we had seen that the internet had come through, and we're sort of understanding the dynamics of it. It was like, wait, you mean to tell me that I can reach any part of the world with this tool here? Like, instantly. Yeah. So I was like,
Okay.
okay, you know what, somewhere, somehow, like this. And also, like, there was so many gatekeepers with the media, and this is why I'm so happy that the media is finally free.
Like we can do this without asking for permission, right? Yeah.
Yes, because like
Yeah.
if it was back then, like, ish, this would have been so
Yeah.
regulated.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So ended up trying my hand at that, and I don't like to say it like I'm all the way happy with my decision. Because as I have gotten older, there's been times when I actually feel like, okay, now you know what, maybe I should have had a degree by now.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not it was something that I really enjoyed, like just something which is more of a fallback plan.
That first degree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that being like a degree which is like in the business field, that was something that I could have applied to like my own life, because I have had situations where I look at my finances and they're in shambles
Yeah.
because I didn't necessarily understand what I was dealing with. So it's like I took all that knowledge that I got and I was just like, to hell with it.
Yeah.
I replaced it with rhymes. But yeah, so I don't like to look at it like, you know, it's just such a great story. Like, you know, I dropped
Yeah.
out and I really do wish that I did finish school though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's real, because it's not and I'm always telling this like to my nephews, my nieces, because now they're all somehow, I don't know why they're getting into university. They should be like, they were supposed to remain 5. But I'm always telling them, like, just do the first degree. Like, the one thing that I've come to learn over time is you won't regret it. Like, it might not be fun now, and especially get it done when you're younger. So it just
Exactly.
gets out of the way, and then pursue whatever you want to pursue, because I just somehow know you won't regret it, especially in an economy or like in a workspace like ours.
Yeah,
You know.
definitely.
So my next question is kind of like related to the one before, right? I think most creatives, I find, and when I say creatives, I think everybody's creative in a different way, but we mean people that are like in the entertainment industry, in media space. Um, it it's it looks like, this is me, my opinion. I'm generalizing actually because I'm not sure, but it's like tertiary education is not the thing in that industry, right? And you know, there's like dropouts. There are people who just didn't go. There are people who discover their art out of survival. Like there are all these different types of stories. But what are your thoughts on the entertainment industry and academics? Like why those two things, especially in this? I think in other countries they might have like academic courses connected to the entertainment industry. But here, why do you think the academics are not as popular with our quote unquote creatives? Yeah.
I think a lot has changed. So I've been doing this for like maybe about 12 years now, like actively, where it's just like this is career. And I have seen a huge shift, you know,
Nice.
like where I'm working in TV right now, and like degrees are so common. Like it just, oh, is that what you studied? Oh, is that what you studied? You know what I mean?
Amazing.
So things have changed over time, definitely. And I think back then, part of what you touched on, like the fact that people, you know, artists or just creative people are really passionate. You know,
Yes.
yeah. So if you're telling me like I have to move away from my passion to do something which,
Yeah.
you know, I guess it's logical, yes, but it's just like, bro, like this is what I want to do, something completely different. I think that the unavailability of courses which aligned with what they would actually love to do, I think that also contributed to it. Another thing, and I think I had touched on this a bit earlier, our education system has dilapidated, you know.
Yeah.
So you find that by the time somebody is completing their high school and stuff, they just don't see the value of education because it's just like all the stuff that you memorize, like you mentioned, and it's just like, how does this serve me in real life, you know? So you go and just start trying your hand at different things, and then, you know, I know so many people who discover, you know, their talents or like their giftings in the creative space just by experimenting, just finding themselves in certain spaces. Yeah. So I think those are the factors which actually do contribute to it. But then one thing I will tell you is there's so much, like people are so eager to learn. They're so eager
love
to
that.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see that, like last night I was in a master class just online, and there were so many people who attended it, like people from here.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, and you could see that, you know, by the time we're getting to the end of it, you know, and we had so many young people in there, but then at the same time there were also people who are like legends in the industry. I saw Uncle Lawrence Thompson was in there as well. You know what I mean?
Amazing. Yeah.
So there's definitely an eagerness to learn, and I think that slowly by slowly people are starting to open like more avenues that people can get information.
I love that, and I guess it's also just options.
Yeah.
Because even for you to end up in forestry,
Yeah,
you know,
fam.
is indicative that at the time, I don't even think there was like too many options for people that were creatives, and so I guess it was either this or that. And it's funny you said you were talking about passion, and I'm only accepting I'm a creative now, by the way. I was so convinced I was like, they call them left brain. I was so convinced I was super left brain. But since I started embracing like my creative side, you know, I think I annoy everyone in this room with all my comments about like, you know, the artwork and this, and then I want it like this. And like, I'm realizing my creativity, but it was still showing up, right? You talked about creative people being passionate, or like artists being passionate. I look back at how, like my career, and how when I'm not feeling something, I stop. And I've left amazing jobs
Wow.
because I did it. I've done what I came to do, and now it's time to go. And that decision, my poor mom has had to go through me leaving these big opportunities for a long time, and somehow always getting something better, because I would always know like it's time and I'm done here. I've done what I came to do, and I want to live well, but it's time for the next thing. And it's that irrationalness. I think in that moment, like I probably portray passion and being a bit irrational. So I should have known then that I was a creative.
I'm here laughing. I'm just like, this is when you knew.
No,
It's just like the
seriously,
signs have been there.
they have, but
Yeah.
I fought it because I don't know. Maybe we'll find out why.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like it also feels like I know maybe it was just never an option for me to explore my creativity because I also just wanted a real career, quote unquote. I wanted a real career where I wore heels, wore like a suit. Um, Probably not with the Tupac T-shirt inside, but like wore a suit, showed up to work and was a professional. So I think I was driven by that,
Yeah.
and I think I've done that. It's been really fun, but like, um, I was also not. I wanted a career that I could be, like praised for. I think I wanted my mom to be proud. I wanted the people around me to be like, oh, she is doing this. So if you look at like the artist journey, I feel like every time someone decides to pursue something that's more artistic, it's like, are you choosing poverty? Like it can even be a contentious thing in a family, among your friends, and people only start to be like, oh yeah, he's like doing well when you kind of like make it, right? When you break through or whatever. Um, I want to know if that was like something that you went through, like that journey of, oh, he's rapping,
Yeah.
oh, he dropped school out of school because he's rapping, and like, what was that like for even your mom? Because single moms, like, oh, they sacrifice,
No, of
What
course.
was that like for your mom, and how did you like shout out the naysayers that were obviously there were some naysayers like, just go to school, just do this, um, up to the point where you kind of like made it, and then it became a career that paid.
Whew. I mean, like you touched on it. It was a fight, definitely. So I'm so grateful. There's an aunt of mine. She's late now, so she worked like a real job, and she's the one who educated my mother. Yeah, great. Like that's a beautiful
What was her
tradition.
name? I like to shout out
Aunt
Aunt.
Joyce.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Aunt
Big
Joyce.
shout
I'm
out.
sure
That's
she's
my
here
ancestor
watching.
right there. Yeah. So with her, they had a brother. He was really young by the time I was young by the time he passed away, and he was an artist. So I hear with him he wanted to just like paint, and they ended up like forcing him to get into the army, and then they say that they didn't have a word for it at the time, but then from the way they described it, I think that he was depressed, and then he started acting out, and it led to him having an alcohol problem,
Yeah.
and then like he ended up passing away. So she had so much grace, like she understood, but then like this is an aunt I'm not seeing every single day. Mom on the other end, like she's just like, she used to remind me all the time. And mind you, at the time that I'm also trying with this, I'm still trying my hand at school.
Yeah.
So, when I now just have lost interest, I was still trying to, take
Yeah,
exams,
yeah.
and now I had started flunking, and I was so comfortable in my flunking. But then at the same time, just like, if you could give me this money
Yeah.
to actually pump it into
Just
this.
this thing,
Yeah.
studio time.
Exactly. So and this is something I actually tell young artists now. I'm like, unfortunately, like, your life, it will have to be funded by something. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in a position. There's a cousin of mine who I stayed with for so many years. I was living in his house, so I have food there.
Yeah.
I have access to a car. All these privileges that ended up helping me out in my career. Yeah, without that, I don't think I would be where I am right now. So someone still has to pay for your food. So something
Yeah.
has to pay for
Yeah.
just your survival and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for people like that, and I don't like, I don't BS. I don't BS artists, like,
Yeah.
just like, look, there's the reality of it. But then also, as our industry grows, like, you don't necessarily have to fund these things out of your own pocket. By the time that we were starting to get like our first like actual recognition and stuff, the people that we were up against, like, most of them were funded by record labels. I remember being in our very first international nomination for most gifted newcomer. It was such a huge group. I remember we had Wizkid in there, we had AKA in there, we had Questa in
I
there.
remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
and most of these guys, like, they were
Also,
being
R.I.P. AKA.
fam.
Yeah.
Ish, now that one
Yeah.
feels personal, fam. You know what I mean?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So really,
Yeah.
really sad. Yeah. So you could tell that other industries, they had people who were funding those, those artists. They had structure. which we unfortunately never had, and we're starting to build now, but we're nowhere near where the rest of the world is. So ideally, like, with any other industry that you step into, you shouldn't have to be the person who's now building the structure.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the one thing that also. But then seeing other people, like, they had people funding their things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we came
They
here.
had like the infrastructure
They did.
that supported like their
Exactly. Yeah. So, and you see people like Josie, they came in, they literally had Brenda Fassi as manager. That's who used to like bring them even.
Josie was so dope as
They
well.
were so
Oh,
good,
man. Yeah.
So we unfortunately didn't have that. Like, we didn't have people who, like, OGs who were passing on, like, okay, this is where we left off.
So you
here's
guys
the
were
baton.
winging it.
No, we were winging it.
That is so badass.
Yeah.
Imagine winging it and then getting nominated with people that had infrastructure. That is some kind of like tenacity, guys.
It's also just like this destiny helpers, like I mentioned, because there are people. There was this the time we did our first album. There's this random Zimbabwean guy who showed up from I don't know where. This guy was just there for the duration of us dropping our album. I don't remember us actually paying him like real money. Like, it was peanuts that he got from this whole thing. And this person has disappeared off the face of okay, well, I see him on Facebook, but it's just like, bro. And then there's another person who was helping manage us, and this person was relentless. We would get into spaces. We did Big Brother for the first time. That was the first big gig, right? And as soon as we got there, they were like, "Where's this manager of yours? This person is persistent. Like, they would call us all the time. Where's she?" And there was a lady. She's in the UK right now.
Yeah.
Shout out. Her name's Alaka.
Yeah.
And Alaka has just like, she does amazing things for a lot of Zambian artists actually who are that side.
Nice.
Yeah. So these people popped up out of practically nowhere. So I guess it's just one of those, like, where your gift starts to open up doors.
Listen, your gift starts to your gift starts to open up doors.
Legit.
I believe that. Yeah. So we digressed a little, but then so obviously there's this your relationship with your mom is strained. And I'm assuming even like a few more people are just like, what is he doing? At what point did you know they got it? Like, when were you like, I think they get it?
So with most of the family, like aunts, uncles, what cousins, like when we did the Big Brother thing that I mentioned, so just like, guys, we're going to do Big Brother, and you know how it is. Like, Big Brother is,
and Big Brother was huge at the time. It was
huge. 18
huge.
million households. That is crazy. Like, I don't think I've ever done something that big ever. So,
No, that was Big Brother was epic, and I remember your performance. Yeah, because I was obviously such a fan. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So when we're doing that, like, a lot of family members were just like, okay, you know what? If this is going to get this person on such a platform, then let's just support where we can. So this person is chipping in for the outfit, and And then that same year we got nominated for that award show. And these guys only paid for 2 of our tickets. So when that was coming up
as a
well,
fam.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, how do we get the other tickets? So where we had a shortfall, like, family started to come in. With my mom, that's where it took a while. Like, she had to hear it from other people. Like, when her workmates now started saying, "Oh, your son."
Oh.
Yeah. And I feel like TV also helped, because I think she understood TV more than she understood the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then with time, like, she would actually know a few songs. And I felt like that there. Like, that was the acceptance point.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, but now, I mean, like, we still have a back and forth. Yeah, but she
still wants to put you in a suit.
Yeah, no, but I feel like now she's understood. It's just like there's things that, when you have to step away from certain things, like you were mentioning, those things they don't understand. And for me, like, I say no to a lot of things, so it's just like, yo, if a bag is coming your way, take it. I'm like, it's not every bag that's good,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I low-key, like, my mom now, she's like super supportive, and but I still think I low-key sometimes. She's like, you said no to what? Because I'll be telling her a story sometimes and her face is looking like, we're not doing that. We're not taking that job, and yeah, I think they still want the best for us. And
Definitely.
like, they're also from a different generation. So our decision-making sometimes can throw them off. But it's still nice to have someone who loves you anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah. So like, I mean, Big Brother, the awards, and I know you got signed to like an international label, and there's all this stuff you're doing now. At which point when did you start like dreaming about like this type of like when did you start dreaming? Did you start dreaming before, or were you just like going with the flow and things were happening, and then you'd be like, oh man, we're here? Has it been something you've dreamt about? Have you had a vision for this, or is it, do you just follow like something intrinsic that says do this now and do this now?
I really feel like it was just placed inside of me,
Yeah.
just like to dream big. Because even before I actually ever stepped into a studio, like I would always like picture just like world tours, things that still haven't happened now.
Yeah.
But regardless, like I've seen certain things, and even before we had the means, like before the internet, before
Yeah.
any of that, yeah, I felt like it was always just placed on my heart. And I feel like when I was younger, before I even saw the world, I used to dream a bit more. Yeah, I feel like reality also starts to get in the way of
Yeah.
your dreams. And sometimes when you see certain things, you feel like maybe this could be the peak.
Yeah.
What else could happen? But yeah, I think that the dreaming definitely happened. And rap music is also very fake it till you make it. So
Yeah.
now it's like a buzzword. It's like manifestation, manifestation. But I feel
But
like
it's just like fake it till you make it.
yeah, but I feel like in that same faking, like we're verbalizing this faking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I talk about Big Brother,
Yeah.
like maybe 2 months before the call came through, I had recorded a lyric which talked about like, getting on flights and, doing all of that stuff. Like before it was even like
Before.
plausible,
Yeah.
yeah. And then boom, like here's this thing happening. So I feel like having faith, like it really does help your faith. Like people will tell you, write down what you would love to see, or like verbalize it or whatever. With rap, it almost felt like you didn't have an option. Like you couldn't talk about just what your struggles were alone. Like
Yeah.
and
You also had to like dream and like
exactly.
it's funny, I've never seen, like, I just had this like aha moment now about rap,
Yeah.
right? And what it is today, because I was watching the Grammys and they were celebrating 50 years of like rap, hip hop, and it didn't exist 50 years. This is a genre that didn't exist. But if you look at rap now, gosh, and if you look at the billionaires that have come out of rap,
Exactly.
I'm wondering what the connect, like in my head it's just clicking that some of that manifestation or fake it till you make it is literally from the bravado of like just bragging about things all the time and
course.
saying this and this and the cars and the this,
Yeah.
and then somehow they come and like materialize, and I'm sure even
course.
they're thinking like so it still comes down to like speaking something to existence.
Definitely.
And I guess for rap, because you're speaking just a lot.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So like when you, like right now you've done quite a few things in the entertainment space. I don't know if you call it entertainment media, like what's the right, okay. At which point did you just like know you've got it, like you've got a gift, there's one thing to kind of know or have an inkling, but even their journey of accepting is also something entirely different. Like when did you know you had something, and when did you accept, or have you accepted yet? Are you still kind of like, do I,
I think where the gift is concerned, I had gone to a boarding school for like I think a month in the 10th grade, and there I ended up meeting some guys they were from the Copper Belt. Yeah, so these are guys I only met that time. I've never seen them ever since then.
I love how your life plays out.
It's a whole theme right here.
Yeah.
It's so consistent. Yeah, so these guys were, some of them actually used to write raps, and then some other guys would have like ghost writers like mail them, like, in the literal mail. Like,
Oh yeah, I remember the stamp life. I was about the
Exact-
stamp life. Yes.
It was so, yeah. So these guys, like, they were rapping and they had so much confidence in what they were doing. So I'd listen to that, and at the time, like, I never used to write my own rhymes and stuff. So I'd listen to it and like, nah, you know what, like maybe I can actually do this, So I wrote these 8 lines, and then after that I would fake forgetting lines, So I used to make it look like I had more rhymes where those came from, but it's just like, oh no, I've just forgotten.
Yeah.
So when I wrote those 8, in comparison to them, I was like, no, wait, I can do this. And then like I carried that same attitude like with everything else that I started listening to after that. So when I got back to Lusaka, 50 Cent was like the biggest thing on earth,
I remember
and
that.
yeah, so even with that that period, there was, I think Fat Joe also had a lot of hits at the time, the Ja Rules and all of that. So whenever I'd write something, I'd try and compare it to like that standard, right? And I criticize myself. Like I am my own worst critic. So I used to just try and like raise my abilities to like that world standard. And this is even like, again, before you even get the chance to even know that this can go anywhere.
Yeah.
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 So just having that attitude, I think that it's something that has really helped me. It's like striving for excellence, Yeah. So the belief in myself, I think it only came when made a few songs, got on radio, and you actually get some kind of reaction. You have callers, being like, hey, that was,
Requesting.
yeah, exactly. Oh, well, way before requests, even. Sometimes it just be like, oh, that guy,
Ah.
and even just like the very first stage performance that I remember, actually getting a reaction from people and then getting too carried away and then trying to like dance and rap at the same time and seeing yourself lose the crowd. I think that also just like it humbles you. You start to
Yeah.
learn. You're like, nah, you know
Yeah.
what? Do what you came to
Yeah.
do. And it's so easy to lose the crowd. Like these
Yeah.
are lessons that I learned quite early. Yeah, but I think that actually just seeing people's reactions from it, that's when I really had the belief in myself and just was like, okay, now you know what? Maybe, just maybe.
So if you were to like sum it up, what is your gift? What do you think your gift is?
I think my gift is communication, and I think it's rooted in understanding human psychology. Yeah. So I love to pick up on common nuances and stuff. So even like if I'm placed in an environment where there are people who might not necessarily be from like the same background, same countries or whatever, like I'm trying to find like what are the things which link us. So I have a way to actually put that into either words or pictures. So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. So I think that's really where my gift lies.
Oh, I love that you are so clear and you articulate that so well. That's that that gives me like so much joy when people like know and they can say it. That's amazing. Um, Acting or rapping?
Listen, when I'm rapping, I'm making like whole, films,
Yeah,
and if
yeah,
I'm acting, I'm also like, there's a rhythm, the way
yeah,
that I'm delivering my lines and
yeah.
my movement and the swagger. So I really feel like you can't do, someone actually mentioned it, the guys who did Love Games, Media 365. Yeah, so we were attending like a graduation for kids who are just coming out of like a music school, which is a great initiative, just to see, kids going through that. Yeah, and she just pointed out the fact that you can't have the film industry without the music industry. And I was like, wait, that is so true,
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And most of the creatives that we work with, especially the people who handle like sound and things,
yeah,
they started off like in the music business. And of course, like you can't, like the pictures, they go with music.
yeah,
Yeah, if you had to take the music out of film,
yeah.
like,
You wouldn't even,
yeah,
yeah.
even with the Nigerian films that we used to watch, even
When,
those just like,
when they play a whole song while they open juice.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes me think of like I'm a big fan of Quincy Jones, and like I've read books, I've seen documentaries, and it makes me think of Quincy Jones and like The Color Purple, and like him then working with like Spielberg and then making like one of my favorite movies of all time. But he's a music guy
Yeah,
who like then got into the movies and the marrying of that and the film
exactly.
scoring, and then you get it. You're just like, yes, they
There you
kind of
go.
they're so complementary.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so dope. So like what makes you like right now, like what's the thing that like makes you light up? Like when was the last time you got like goosebumps and like, oh, this is, yeah, like when was the last time you felt,
Um, it's just like so much, I
yeah,
went through this period, since we're being candid, I had a bad breakup, and I felt like after that it was just like it was pretty dark, So there's
oh
so
gosh,
many
breakups
things,
are the worst.
fam,
Hey,
and you don't even feel it like in the moment, or you're just trying to survive,
yeah,
But then when you
yeah,
look at it in hindsight, you're like, yo,
yeah, yeah.
So when I came out of that, I feel like I've been able to enjoy so many things, Even just like ice cream, and you're like, wow, this
This
is
is great.
this
It's
is really
cold, but
good.
it's yummy.
Yeah. But I feel like the last moment of euphoria that I had, where it was just like, I was just floating. I I just recently started recording myself. So like back then the culture was, somebody has a studio, you go there
Yeah,
and you record.
yeah.
And even just like I couldn't afford to get my own equipment. So things have gotten better now, with the internet and stuff. You can get things for cheaper now. So I have a setup at home. So
Nice.
just yeah, so when I managed to just like record my very first song alone, and this is like I was finishing at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm super tired. I had to like deliver in like this like whispery tone just so I don't wake up the neighbors and stuff.
Yeah,
But just like finishing that, like that gave me a lot of joy.
yeah.
Definitely gave me a lot of joy.
Oh,
I've
that's
been
very cool.
also starting to enjoy clothes. I used
Uh-huh.
to like my very first few raps, like I actually used to talk about clothes a lot. But
Okay.
it was, when you
You
see
love
clothes,
clothes.
close your eyelids. That was my life for the most part. Yeah, so just learning how to like put things together and just like just being excited about that,
Yeah.
Yeah, and just as a man also,
Mm,
there's certain limitations. Like, okay, now you know what, you can be happy about a suit, but like you can't be too happy about
yeah,
like other
yeah.
combinations. Yeah, but then like where I am right now, like I'm so comfortable.
That's nice.
Yeah, so clothes, yeah, family, let's not even, that's a
Yeah,
given. Yeah, I
yeah.
had so much great family time in
Amazing.
December, so yeah.
That's nice. And also coming to close, you saw like Pharoah's appointment as like creative,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
director of Louis Vuitton, and I feel like that starts to make people like feel a lot more when you start to see, what they call it representation. Then it's like, oh,
Exactly.
this is I can love clothes, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be weird.
Yes, and his
Yeah.
bin fire, remember the ice
For
creams?
yes, the ice creams. I remember the ice creams. I think I
Yeah.
had a knockoff
Yeah,
at some point. I must like in hindsight, I thought they were real,
yeah.
but now I know they were a knockoff.
I know that was the period, man. Like, it had S. Dot Carters and what. Like,
Yes,
people were just,
yes,
yeah.
and gosh, now everything's everywhere. Anyway, I love it for this generation, but for us to get our hands on anything like that was
Yeah.
like insane. Um, so I know you're like a deeply spiritual person because you and I have had like numerous conversations on spirituality.
Yeah.
So like, how much do you attribute like spirituality to your like found success? Like, what do you feel there's a correlation there? How much of a role does it play? And like, what are some of the spiritual practices that you still have?
Um, I don't know how much of my own spirituality actually has a role to play, especially in my come up, because I think I was wilding. But then one thing I knew for sure was that I did have people who were praying for me. Yeah. But right now, I think that we've, for me, I feel like it's been simplified for me. And when I talk about spirituality, I talk about my own spirituality, not the next person's. I don't practice just so that I can now point out another person's wrongs. No. So for me, one of the most important things is just sharpening my discernment, right? So like there's so many
Preach.
moments, yeah,
Yeah.
something told me I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So it's like that's something you can grow it, so and
That's a
that's really
muscle.
been my whole thing. Yeah, so just knowing that I can quiet down the flesh, because our flesh is trying to kill us from the time we are kids. Like, you leave kids, they'll try and do the
Cliff in.
most.
So just jump over a
Exactly,
cliff
and
if
it's
they
like,
can.
yo, you
Yeah.
just got here. you know yeah, so just understanding that if I can quiet down the flesh, I'll be able to hear more of that. And I've also started to see that even where creativity is concerned, if I can just channel that, like I feel like I do tap into they say there's only one realm of creativity really, and everybody can tap into it. And it's so common that you have an idea and then another creative ends up having the same idea.
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes.
tap from the same place. Yeah,
Ah.
so I feel like my spirituality has really played a huge role in just me knowing that, okay, you know what, first of all, I can, even just like business, and there's certain deals which will come on the table and you're like, nah, and
Doesn't feel right.
exactly,
Yeah.
without knowing where where you're headed, and then like a few months down the line, something bigger, something which serves you better comes through. So I feel like as long as I keep that inner voice, if I can hear it, in Christianity they say is it the still
Yeah.
silent voice?
Yeah, the Holy Spirit, the still
Exactly.
silent voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also just like learning the other names for it. Like I call it the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You find that I've had a Muslim friend tell me that, no, you know what? Did they say that your iman is really
Yeah.
high up or
Yeah,
whatever? And
yeah.
then you find that some people call it Kundalini energy or whatever.
Yeah,
But then like
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just like being able to hear, the
The yeah.
Exactly, and communicates. Like we're shaped by two things. It's the things that we intake, but then there's also that, like,
That
that's the
thing.
thing that will tell you, okay, now you know what, like you have been a creative, and it's probably been communicating that this
Yeah,
whole time.
it's been
The
loud.
rest of us could see it,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like you
But the
are.
flesh,
Fam,
damn
this
flesh.
guy. Yeah, so that's really shaped my whole journey, like my whole spirituality journey, and I'm glad that over time I have also found like the things that I used to go chase in other places, like the like I it's always been inside of me. I just
Yeah,
needed to know how to reach out.
yeah.
So yeah, at least over time I've seen that all the binging and the going crazy and all of that stuff, like all this, like trying to fill up that,
That
they call it the God shaped hole. Yeah, it's died down.
it's died down.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Like you said, it's got different names: the intuition, Holy
yeah,
Spirit, whatever you want to call it. But
yeah.
it's real. I think one of the biggest lessons I've gotten over the last few years is that it's something you build. It's like a muscle. Like the
Definitely.
more time you pay attention to it, the louder it kind of gets.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm also actively working on. I think I've followed it without knowing I was following it. Now I know, oh, it's that
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Love that. Love that.
So it led you here, so we're grateful for
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it got so loud. It's funny. I was spending time with it today, and I went back to my old journals and I
Yeah.
found like 5th May or something 2020 is when I named this podcast.
Wow.
I named the podcast and whatever, and then I just like threw away the journal.
You
It
said
stayed in
5th
the
May
back of my
2020.
brain. 2020, like it stayed in the back of my brain, but like it's so funny how when I started the steps leading me up to here, I didn't think about the fact that I had like already written it down.
Yeah.
So today when it reminded me, for some reason I think I needed to go back to that entry. I was like, yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some good actually came out of
Yeah,
that dark time.
so it always like I never regret it. Like when I get too busy and I
Yeah.
like get up and just go and I have a terrible day, I can always attribute it back to the fact that I
Yeah.
didn't spend some time thinking about what I wanted to do, my intention for
Yeah.
the day, and then paying attention the rest of the day.
Yeah.
You just get so busy and then
And I
yeah.
just meant 2020 in general, because May
Yeah.
2020 things must have been tense. They had just announced the pandemic. We
yeah,
knew, you
yeah.
know what I mean. So
Yes.
it's
I didn't even
actually-
connect that, but I was like, I was journaling a lot at that
Oh
time.
yeah.
Yeah. Because of the pandemic, but also because I was just like starting to feel restless and lost again. And being I had an amazing job and I loved it, but I wasn't understanding why it stopped being enough. So I was going back and forth a lot between like, why isn't this should be enough. This is great. I love my colleagues. I love what I do. I love what the company does. The money is decent. Like it was working. The formula was, the formula when it works, but somehow it wasn't enough. That's when I was journaling a lot.
I see.
Yeah. Gosh.
Wow. That's really helpful as well. Journaling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Journaling is really good. So this is a question like for me to you.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of like it's been like a theme this entire conversation is the fact that like I love entertainment, like the world of entertainment. You know this.
Yeah.
Like low key, one of my like fantasies was to manage talent like yours. Like, do you ever watch Entourage? The
No,
show
I
Entourage.
haven't
There was
seen
this
it, no.
guy in Entourage called Ari Gold, who was like an agent, a less extreme version of him, but like I was like, that is such a cool job. He used to manage this famous actor. No, he was an agent for this famous actor, but like, so I've loved this. I've loved the world of entertainment. I've wanted to. I wasn't sure where I would start, but I wanted to do books. I love books. I love consuming movies, and I think I'm a pretty good movie critic. Like I know what's good. I know what's not good. I can, I get it. But somehow I fight it.
Yeah.
I've always fought it, right? And having had like a traditional-ish career, my career, I say traditional-ish because as much as there's some traditional aspects, it's also very unconventional. Like, in your opinion, what stops someone like me who's done the degree, who's done the job, who now has like the director position and it's like, oh, good, and Paul, your LinkedIn looks great, So like, what stops someone like me from letting that go and like jumping ship into like an industry like media and entertainment?
I'd say maybe being comfortable in a certain situation. Like nothing
Mm,
pushes you more than desperation or just
mm-hmm,
necessity, not desperation.
mm-hmm.
Let me say necessity.
Necessity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
necessity is it's one of the quickest ways to get something done. But then I feel like apart from that, we worry about money. It's a
Yeah.
capitalistic society. We do have to pay our bills and stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think most people are at those crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
You can have great ideas, but then you're just thinking, okay, now you know what? Like, if I had to
Pursue
jump,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I guess maybe the preparation and the cushioning. You know what I mean? Where like, okay, now you know what? Yeah, because but I don't know. Just follow the spirit, I guess.
Follow the spirit.
Yeah, but I think that especially when you climb that high up the ladder,
Yeah.
you obviously will think twice before
Yeah.
just like jumping and but then I think that there's also just like so many opportunities, even just like you mentioning having wanted to manage talent and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's such a need for that. Like just the entertainment industry in general, it needs more talent and
Mm.
just needs people to be more formal. Like today alone, I had to deal with two different creatives who were just being so unprofessional. You know what I mean? I'm like, bro.
Let's add some
Yeah, and then
formality.
like I called people who are from a different country and
Yeah.
they were so quick, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like, hey, let's do this,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like there's definitely a need for us to just like reshape the culture here, in terms of
Mm.
entertainment. It's not just entertainment, just there's so many areas. Like food,
Yeah.
we need to revisit
Food.
that. Our
Yeah.
transportation and
Yeah.
this and that. Yeah. So there are people who can make changes, and actually let me actually use this platform to speak to especially people who are rather mayadi suburban,
Mm.
the private school kids and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
Like unfortunately, like I feel like we could be doing more
Mm.
in just the running of this country.
Mm.
We leave things which are very important to people who like we just need to do more. End of the
Mm.
day, the people we sort of neglect, they're the people who are raising our children when we're busy. They are the
This
people who
is
are teaching
word.
our kids. They're the
Yeah.
people who are serving us our food and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And we just need to be more involved. We have our city is it has so many pedestrians, but then we don't have sidewalks. Where we have sidewalks, there's been no sensitization. Just be
Yeah.
like, okay, this is how you use it. So it's just little things like that. I think that we just need to be a
Yeah.
lot more involved. And one good place to start in communicating these ideas to people is entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
true.
I know that as an entertainer, I can reach millions of people, whatever, and we can start shaping a culture. That's the thing that we have been lacking as a people. Another
Yeah.
woke thing I have to touch on is I was
Let's
talking
do
to like
it.
a friend who was he was just breaking down that when you look at Europe, the countries look small, but then it's kingdoms. So it's
Mm.
people who are basically the same.
Yeah.
They want the same things for their entire country and stuff. We unfortunately don't have that because Zambia is, I won't even call them like tribes or whatever. There were kingdoms
Mm-hmm.
before
Mm-hmm.
colonization happened,
Mm-hmm.
and when Kaunda came into power, at least he tried to like
Yeah.
unite us in
One
one
Zambia,
Zambia,
one
one
nation.
nation,
Mm-hmm.
and that culture. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's gone out of the window. So as a result, even just as a city, we don't necessarily want the same things for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But our markets could look better,
Mm-hmm.
our roads could look better. But then it's like as long as I have this wall fence around my property,
I'm good.
I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about that. But we still have to use we're all staying in
We
the
still
city.
somehow manage to get to that frustrating
Mm-hmm.
point. Like we still
Exactly.
Get out of our house
Mm-hmm.
and we'll meet it.
Exactly. And sometimes it comes into your house.
It comes into your
Very,
house.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's I feel a bit called out as
Mm.
well. So yeah, I think that was important to say
Yeah.
because like it's easy to get comfortable and not relate and not
Mm.
feel or be empathetic, like
Yeah.
separate yourself
Mm.
because you're living in a nice house with an electric
Yeah.
fence
Mm.
and easily just separate yourself from everything else that's happening literally
Yeah.
down your road,
Mm.
So I'll see how I can also do better. I try, but I think
Yeah. No,
I can do
all of
better.
us can. Like,
Yeah.
I can do better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
So what are you still looking forward to? What are you yet to do or achieve?
um, I am in my mid 30s now, and I'm just getting
Nice.
comfortable here.
Yeah.
I feel like most things are within reach.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my peers are now like I can call up people who are, you
It's
know,
the best, isn't
yeah,
it?
no, it
Oh
definitely
man,
is.
I had that like realization recently. I was looking around at like a golf tournament and
Hmm.
people getting prizes
Yeah,
were my friends. It used to be like my friends' fathers. Now it was
exactly.
my friends. I was like, wait,
Hmm.
what?
Yep.
I know people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that access right there, once
that's
you realize it,
access.
yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, you can use it for amazing things. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm really passionate about just like shaping culture,
Mm-hmm.
So I have such a heart for, and I guess there's power in names. I was named Samson. I went back to like read the story of Samson. I'm just like, bro,
Yes.
like, why would you name me this? It's just before we even get to like the Delilah, it's just like
Yeah.
the mission that he had was like to save his people, and I feel
It's
like
all connected.
yeah, I have this savior complex
Mm.
which sometimes works against me, but
Probably works against you in relationships, but that's another podcast.
that part.
Um,
Woo! Yeah, that's a whole episode.
that's a
Trust.
whole other
Yeah.
episode. But
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think that with the position that I have, I've been pushing myself, like especially where music is concerned, because I see the power of film, and I see that film has sort of developed. It's developed quite a bit, but there's power in music, and with music, it's just like I was one of the best gifts that my family gave me was just the ability to speak vernacular. So I
Yeah.
can, yeah, I can break down certain concepts and just
Yeah.
like, yeah,
You
so,
guys like vernacular, like, I mean, now we have Sheffy. He's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
that's
absolute.
gang.
There's such swag in like
Yeah,
vernacular rapping, right? And I
exactly.
think for me, yeah, we had the Daddy Zimas, whatever, but I was also like a bit of like you call them a Mayadi kid. Yeah. So I was listening to like Jay-Z and like
Yeah.
Tupac and like Kanye. But when you guys came on the scene, you could mix that like English and the vernacular, and it
Yeah.
was cool. And I think that's what really initially attracted me to your music. So I think like making vernacular cool is like, it's unfortunate we have to make vernacular cool because it's us, it's our language. But
Exactly.
I love that part about like maybe reshaping culture. I'll call it reshaping because
Yeah.
I feel like it used to be there.
Yeah.
Reshaping culture cool by like making vernacular cool. I think
Oh yeah. Definitely.
that's really important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've dug into like so many of I mean, I come from 4 tribes, obviously, like all 4 different grandparents, like were from their own
Amazing.
tribes. Yeah. So I found that when I dug into like one tribe's oh no, 2 of them, both of them were in that vernacular. So I know that a lot gets lost in translation, but I feel like there's so many people who have been raised and they know the tribe that they identify with, but unfortunately they don't speak their language,
Yeah.
and it's okay. They're
Yeah.
as Zambian as everybody else.
Yeah.
But I feel like those people who can understand that, like they now they need to break. Our culture has so much beauty, like it's got so much beauty. But then we went through this education system which was designed
Ah,
but
man.
you know who, yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel like we do need to start like touching on that and just
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like that's the thing that has really burdened me. Just like, okay, you know what? How can we do this?
Yeah.
I'm constantly talking to my connect back in SA, and Verbal is also deep in that,
Yeah.
and he's also at
Shout
this
out to
point where
Verbal.
yeah, shout out
That's
to
my
Verbal,
guy.
man. Yeah, so he's also getting into that culture, and then
Yeah.
you see how much of Zambia's culture is also influenced by that region and how it came
How
up,
it
and
like
then
the
with the mixture of,
the
yeah,
mfekane and
exactly.
like just dating it. It's all a very cool story.
Yeah.
I think you can actually Game of Thrones that shit if you tried,
Bro.
and it would be amazing.
Don't be
Yeah.
here like leaking our idea. No, I'm saying we do need to do
Yeah,
that though.
yeah.
We do.
And I think it would be amazing.
Legit.
It's funny you were talking about like the power of names, Samson. I was looking at my name, and I know this is obvious.
Which is one
I
of
was
the
looking at
coolest
my name.
names in the world,
Yeah,
by the way.
but like my name means like Chipochedu means our gift, and my fascination with gifts is insane.
Yeah.
But like that's what they call me every day, So in that moment, I was like, am I making this cheesy? Is there a connection here, or am I just being super cheesy? But I do think like names and like something you're constantly called sometimes, or like names also like shape purpose. I don't know.
Legit.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're making it cheesy at all.
I'm not making it cheesy,
Yeah,
right? It's all
yeah,
connected.
yeah.
Okay, so last question for you,
Yeah.
we have to do this because of the current climate. There's been
Yeah.
so many lists out, and everybody has their opinion. But I have to ask you this:
Yeah.
top 5 rappers.
Oof.
Top 5 rappers.
You see, okay, I'll tell you, my list will probably change. It's so hard to pick top 5.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if I'm trying to get into like business, you know, trying to become a mogul,
Yeah.
the music I'll listen to will be very different from like if
Yeah.
I'm trying to be deeper and, you know, more in touch with my, you know, so I'll probably leave out some people.
Okay, let
that,
me just say top 5 who've influenced you like the most.
even with that, it's changed
Okay.
over periods.
Okay, you know what?
But,
You just answer the question the way you want.
you know, when, because like right before, this is the one question I actually rehearsed and I wrote down
Yeah.
an entire list. And you know, when you're asking it to me, I'm like, wait, how do I get here? And not only have I forgotten a very important name, like he's literally my screensaver or whatever you call this
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now I have to
Think
eliminate.
about it.
No, not really. I think I have the list in my head. I have to eliminate Drake and bring in another person.
Yeah.
Like Drake was
No,
on
you
my
can remove
list. Nah, but guys, Drake is legendary. So no, we won't debate this.
Okay.
We won't.
Okay.
No, but he's really influential. That's the
Influential he is.
Now I'm remembering another person who was also you know what? Let me just give you a list.
Just give me
You
a list. Just
need
give me
5
a list.
names
Just
and
give me a
that's it.
list.
Okay.
Yes.
You know what? I will. Jay-Z definitely influenced me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay-Z, and not just the music alone. It's just like everything that's been Jay-Z, you know, just his entire career has just been like, it's a whole case study. It was literally the blueprint. He knew what he was doing when he called it that.
He called it he called it into existence.
Exactly.
And then he gave us a blueprint.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Jay-Z is definitely on that list. I'll say Kanye. Yeah, and these lists which have come out, you know, they are not including him there.
Yeah.
We understand.
What? Oh, because of his. Oh, right.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah,
You know, but then like we can't erase the
Kanye.
man's legacy, fam. Like he has given us music, and he's also influenced so many people who came and gave us music. Huge part of Jay-Z's career as well.
Of course.
You know, yeah. So I definitely have to put Kanye there. I'll have to bring it back here locally. Before anybody else, I feel like even before I met Tim, I had heard of him on the radio, you know, and this was crazy because we were in high school, you know, and he's slightly younger. So or him already being on radio at that time and just being that brilliant at what he does. And I'm also speaking from a point where I have heard his album before, you know, it's coming soon. And
New album.
Promo. But the man is brilliant with what he does with words, man.
Yeah.
So that's definitely top 5. And this is like not even like bias. This is not nepotism. This is just like
This is not
the
family
man.
business.
Yeah.
Like, no, Tim's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also go with another great local act, and that's Sheffy. You know, so Chef is, look at his catalog, man. Yeah. He knows how to connect with the people.
Yeah.
You know, and he has quite a mind. Like when he gives us a little glimpse of what goes on in that mind of his, it's beautiful. So I think I've mentioned 4 names. For the
It's a nice list so far.
one, yeah. 5th, I'll just have to go with Pac, just because, and there's so many other people. Yeah, shout out. Pac was revolutionary, man. Like this man, and just how young he was.
Those guys were babies.
They were.
When I grew up and realized like Pac and Biggie's age, I was like, get out of here.
And that's their
These
age
are babies.
of death, even. So
Their
you can
age
imagine,
of death.
Yes.
Babies.
So all the things that they were
Crazy.
doing, they were so young. Yeah. So Pac was revolutionary. Pac had us all believing in ourselves, you know. Yeah. And as Black people, I think we've been needing that. No matter where you come from in the world, like, you know, there's a need to just, you know, to look at ourselves and be like, oh, you know what, we're actually magic, which we are, you know. So Pac really did make us feel like that, you know. And so that's my top 5.
Nice.
Yeah, I have so many honorable mentions I would give.
Of
but
course.
like,
The list is long. The
It
list
is.
is long. I think the list gets harder every year.
legit.
But good list. I love your list. I think to a large extent I agree. Of course I have a few things I'll change, but that's a great list.
Of course.
So we end every podcast, like the HR interviewer and me can't help it, but we end every podcast with turning it on you, like you know how you end interviews with like do you have any questions for us?
I don't.
So we end any podcast every podcast with like, do you have any questions for me?
Okay. My question to you would probably be, what would you love to have achieved with this podcast that you've started? Like, if you look back at it, like you have lived your life. You're a grandmother, and
I'm a
you're
grandma.
exactly. You're 90, and you're
Yeah.
looking back at it. Like,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you would love to get to that point? And you're like, okay, you know what? This is something I achieved with this podcast.
I think I would like to demystify the story of certain people are more special than others. I think a lot of times people don't try stuff or don't just lean into themselves, or that, like, the whole point of this podcast is to discuss like our innate gifts, the things that we're good at, and then the people that have had the courage to just like pursue that and create a career out of it, which is why I'm looking forward to chatting with so many different people, so that someone out there would watch and listen and also just realize that they have it. Like, it doesn't mean Sam and Chipo are like these extraordinary, like
Exactly.
untouchable human beings, and that's why they're there. Because I find that I get that a lot, where people will look at me and think, but you had this, or you're special, or this, and I'm like, no, not really. I just really like myself and really believe in myself and really think like I can do certain things. And I think if you had the same attitude, you'd surprise yourself.
Definitely.
So at 90, looking back, it would be great to know that even if I don't know them, even if I like never meet them and I never hear of it, it would be nice to just know that someone heard the message as it was intended and then took that and then created a meaningful career. And remember, this is not about money for me. I think if you get financial success out of your career, good for you. But if you can just find something that provides for you and your family, of course, but just like excites you and you make a difference, I think that would be amazing. So if I've influenced and it's been like a snowball effect, and it's like there are all these people that got touched by someone that came on this podcast or something I said, that would be freaking amazing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it will happen. There's so much power in the media. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Some of the people who've touched my life, they probably don't
Same.
even know. Yeah.
Same.
It's just one small word.
Like Oprah doesn't know. She's sitting there in her rich house somewhere. She doesn't know that we are sitting here because of her. You know what I mean?
For
so like
now.
for now. But yeah, it's I hear what the media is like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. I wish you all the best in
Thank
this journey.
you.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Are you asking anything else? Normally we give 3 questions.
Are you serious? You
Yeah,
should have told me it was 3 questions.
No, I wasn't
dude.
going to tell you were about to ask questions. That's supposed to be a surprise, supposed to be on the spot.
Oh, okay.
I don't want you to think too much about it.
I see.
I want you to just like freestyle it.
Oh, okay, cool. This is something I wasn't going to mention on the podcast, but like here we are. I have been around you in spaces where it's people from all walks of life, know? And I mean, you touched on it just by saying you love yourself, And one thing I really, really respect about you is just like, first of all, you can tell that this person is very comfortable in their skin. And then you also like have this, like you command this respect about you. You know what I mean? Like you're a very fun person, but I think
a boss. What?
Shout out. Yeah, but I think that someone would actually like they would know not to, to cross you and it's not even like in an intimidating type of way. It's just like you have this aura about you, which is just like, nah, you know what, like come on, man, like don't, So I just love to know, like, how have you gotten yourself so comfortable in just who you are? Because Chipo is Chipo. Like I don't see you trying to be anything other than you. You know?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think I realized pretty young that I was Chipo. Now, hear me out. I know that sounds really corny, but like, I think I realized pretty young that I was Chipo. Like, there were things that I just knew I wouldn't be or I wasn't. And there are things that I knew I was. And I just like, I got it when I was young. And then I decided that's who I would be. And it hasn't always been easy. I was like getting my hair did today. And I was chatting with my friend. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, okay, throw it in.
Yes.
I was chatting with my friend about it, and I was like, growing up, we constantly got pitted against each other, especially as girls. I remember like there was a quick like back bambage of like, oh, they're the pretty ones and they're the smart ones and they're the girls that like it was this weird thing. And I think I remember at the time hating the boxes. Like why even and even for the girls that were deemed like the pretty ones, and that they would then fail to come back and be like both things. And like I didn't know how to articulate it at that time, but I hated the boxes because I was like, why can't we just be what we are? Why can't we just be everything? I didn't have the language for it. And I became defiant over that. And then I became defiant about, as someone who like also suffered from low self-esteem, because I constantly got the things that made me really good now are the things that I got taunted for. Oh, you talk too much, or you're too loud, or you're this and you're that. And then you have to kind of like start to figure out like those are the things you learn later, that those are the things that make you special. But I think as someone that had to rebuild their self-esteem, I then became like fiercely protective of it. I was just like, okay, this is how God made me. There's nothing changing. This is what we get in this life. I don't know if we get reincarnated, but in this life, we get this hair, we get this body, we get this face, we get these teeth with the gap, we get all this.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's what it is, and we're going to like protect it and love it. And like I was making these decisions without knowing I was doing it, until like later now, when you get that feedback, you're like, okay, I've been protecting this for a while. And I think that was that. But aside from that, I didn't do it alone. I also have people that affirmed me. I have a mother who made me start watching Oprah when I was 10.
Wow.
And that's why she's a big influence on me. I started listening to Jay-Z when I was really young. I'm like his biggest fan. And I think what I loved about Jay-Z was his comfortability in like, he's not Pac. He doesn't have that like voice, and then he's not like your macho rapper, and then he's a smart guy, and he's happy being a smart guy. And I'm like, so all those things started to like build on it. Even with a lot of people locally, and it's people that people don't even know. Yeah, they're from like my mom, some of my mom's friends, my sister, you just start to recognize authenticity, and you're like, I like that. And then you start to like, and that's a long answer of saying like, somehow I just knew, but I also just quickly became protective of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you spoke on it. Definitely, and I know there's people who definitely do need to hear that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's complicated. The simple thing is that you are who you are. Like that's how God made you, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, you can change certain things, you can grow certain things, but like it is what it is.
Exactly.
So if you accept, the quicker you accept that and you love it, like the nicer your life starts to become.
Definitely.
I think. Yeah.
I have so much to say on that, but I'll just
another
and it's
podcast,
beautiful.
another time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Last question. You said 3 questions.
3 questions.
Right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, as a man, they do say, I mean, like when it comes to privilege, you won't even know when you're, like there's so many privileges that I have that I didn't necessarily recognize. And then there's conversations I have had with like female friends and, or even just like, watching, some interviews on the internet or whatever, and, people are breaking down, the struggles that women do go through, like even the simplest things, like I love to take walks at night, and I didn't, like it came later for me to realize like that's something that it's a privilege that I have that somebody who's next to me might not necessarily have. I just jump into my car or whatever and I can kickstart
Life
it.
is good.
I didn't know there's like a whole routine and things. So you're a woman who's in a position of power, and I mean there's so many movements out there, people still fighting for both I'll say equity. And what would you love to see for women like going forward?
A lot. That's a loaded question, but it's not easy. And I used to be in a bubble. Or I wasn't in a bubble, but I just thought that's how it was, and that's how it just is, And the more that and it's funny, like the more that you kind of rise and get this exposure is the more that you get exposed to the fact that we're so different, right? Or we're treated differently, or it's not equal. And it's something that's an exhausting fight, to be honest, because I don't know why we have to keep explaining or keep saying, like, like women are not safe. Like, you say it and you don't feel understood. Like, no, but like, why is she walking around at night? I'm like, but the same thing you said, but like, why is that even the conversation? Like, why are we in this place anyway? So it's something exhausting, but I think you keep fighting for it. And what I would love to see for women is honestly, like, for women ourselves, is for us to I'd like us to get to a point where we don't have to fight so much, because it's exhausting. There are moments I get really exhausted by it. So I'd love for us to just like live a life of equity without the exhaustion of always fighting. We might not see it in my generation. We might see it in like generations to come. This is why I love the girls coming. They're so boss. And like, I hope we get to a point where it just is. There's just men, there's just women, and it just is. And the women are not fighting for equity. We're not even fighting for more. We're just fighting for equity. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to safety, that's another topic. Like, I would love to see a world where men don't feel entitled to women. And it's that entitlement throws me off. Like, every time you see that headline, especially the defilement headlines in the papers, which they always reporting, for some reason they're always reporting those rates without, I don't know what's being done about it, but the rates are always being reported, is just the fact that like someone feels entitled to this child, to take this child and violate them in the most horrible way. That, like, what is that? Like, what type of entitlement do you have as a person on another human being, let alone a child? So if I don't know if that entitlement. This is why, like, I get that. I never used to get like hashtag men are trash, hashtag men hate women. But when you see things like that, you're like, do you people even like us? Because if you liked us, you don't do stuff like this, you know? So yes, a world where we just don't fight because it just is, we're just equal. And also a world where men don't feel so entitled to women, like to our lives. And that's just it. It's because you ruin lives when you do things like that. So to our lives, that would be a great world. And I hope for my children's sake, and when I'm 90 and my grandchildren don't even have to think about that. It's like in a history book, you know, that would be fucking fantastic. Yeah.
I hear you.
Gosh, you got me all emo.
No, it's a necessary conversation to have, man. We have a long way to go. Like, I'll tell you, I'm scared to bring daughters into this world because, yeah, it's a scary world.
It really is. And we need to acknowledge that without like, oh, but no, we've been doing so much for women's rights. No. Shut up. Like, acknowledge the fact that it's still, you know, like you said, a scary world. Like, let's acknowledge that without these little small wins, some, you know, the girls passed high at like, oh, look, there's St. Mary's. Oh no, the boy child is being left behind. I'm like, calm down. This is a bigger issue, and get out of your head and like really, you know, like the example you gave about like, let's get out of our wall-fenced houses and start to do something. Same thing. Get out of your head and really look at what's happening and start to help. You know, be better.
Let's be better, guys.
Yeah.
Let's be better.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh man, this was so cool. I knew this would be cool because you and I always have the most amazing conversations, but this was like even cooler than I hoped. Thank you so much, friend. Like, I really appreciate your taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you for having me.
Please come back sometime. We only just like scratched the surface.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I would definitely be back here. So yeah, wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go out there and change the world.
Let's do it. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and thank you so much to our guest Sam for such an amazing conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you like it and subscribe, and tune in for next week's episode. Cheers. Thank you.